So, Mike Malbrough, it's
Hi,
good to
Mel.
see you. It's good to see you. Welcome to you,
Likewise.
Mel.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I waited quite a while to get you on the show. I had to go through so many agents.
So many agents. Yes, yes. Very hard to
Pin you
pin
down.
down.
Anyway,
Look at that stack of artboards behind me. I got a lot of work to do.
so thank you very much. So I've already shared the fact that you are one of my favorite people in the world. Uh,
Aw.
but even so, we still have to start with the jingle.
Oh, okay.
We still have to do the jingle, right?
Let's
And
go.
you're a musician, so let's do the jingle. And here we go with the jingle. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Get a chair, grab a seat, or we'll sweep you off your feet. We move, we groove, you got Mel. Ease your legs, rest a while, all you gotta do is smile. We're swell, can't you tell you got Mel? When the show begins, you better hold on real tight, or before you know it, you'll be high as a kite. Take a break, settle down, we're the only show in town. SRO, don't you know you got Mel? Give it up, don't think twice, we're a hurricane on ice. What the hell, give a yell, ring your bell, show and tell. Mademoiselle, give a smell, you got Mel. You've got Mel.
And Mel has Mike Malbrough. Mike, so today you are a famous illustrator and children's book writer, but it wasn't always like that, was it?
No, it was not always like that.
So how did it happen?
How far do you want to go back, Mel?
150 years, not no more than that. No.
Well, um, I'll digress a little bit and say that whenever I tell this kind of story, I think the most valuable information that people want to hear is like, where can they see themselves in a story that someone in my position might tell? So I try to hit all the points that might make someone feel like, hey, I'm like that, you know. I was always interested in drawing and making art. That was sort of my what I gravitated to. You know, when you're in your adolescent teenage years, you sort of look for whatever you gets you the ability to influence other people. You know, what makes people smile, what makes them interested in you.
Let's start before that. Are your parents
Oh,
artists?
um, hobbyists, both. Yeah, I mean, when I saw some of their abilities to draw, you know, I said, "Wow, there's a little bit that I got it from." You know,
Did they encourage you as like a 4-year-old? Oh, Mike, what a lovely picture.
oh, sure, yeah, of course, yeah, of course.
So this
So,
was
I
from
mean,
an early age.
and that's where it starts. You know, if you get this first little tastes of, you know, people, you know, whatever you do when you're 4, your parents love. It gets to be when you're like 8, 9, 10 that it's like, no, okay, you could stop showing me that now. But it still had that same effect, and you know, so yeah, so it just kind of it became what I did. Um, uh, all throughout high school. Um, I wasn't too interested in higher education at the time. My college years, if I'm not going too fast, were spent um, working at a nonprofit puppet theater in my hometown. Uh, so these were the professional artists who had their degrees and everything that said, save yourself a little bit of money and don't, you know, from art school. And uh, that was my training, was under them. So I built puppets.
You went to college?
I did not. Mm-mm.
You didn't. So instead of that, you went to them.
Yeah, I basically worked. I was like a gypsy with these theater people, making puppets for shows for kids and stuff like that. So
Amazing. I didn't
Yep.
know that. You still have any
All right.
puppets around?
I don't actually. Most of them, we were. It was a small nonprofit, and so a lot of the work we did was on an extreme budget, and so a lot of it was paper mache. So they don't last very long. Some are still. I probably have photos somewhere. I'll throw some up.
They're pretty good until the first rain.
Exactly. Yeah. I think if you, there might be, I mean, not that anyone would be interested, but a deep dive Google search of my name might bring up a photo or two of a puppet show or me in a strange costume. Yeah. So
I'll do that incognito later. So
yeah,
no,
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so I mean, the good part about that was like art as a career was just like what I started doing, like storytelling, writing, drawing was what I did right away. Um, Not for much money at the beginning, and but it kind of, it just never wasn't what I was doing. Um, that eventually led to um, some work that brought me to New Jersey from Baltimore, which is where I'm originally from, to work in the fashion industry. Um, yeah, I illustrated for a clothing company for a really long time, about 6 years. Uh, and then I decided to leave the sort of corporate world of design at the best time in our history here in America, which is around 2008. So right in the middle of like a housing crisis and all of the market stuff that was going on, and decided to freelance and get back to my nonprofit community arts roots, and ran a studio for teenagers for a while. And my wife and I uh, had our kids, and then sort of eventually, after sort of dabbling in a bunch of different fields in the creative world, I thought it was time to kind of find my, like, what am I going to do with my life now that I'm like a third of the way through it.
married with two kids, and okay, what do I do?
Exactly. And I read a book called by Pamela Slim called Body of Work, which is it's sort of like a workbook that I recommend for anyone who's sort of um, interested in this sort of thing. And what it talked about was how my parents' generation, the sort of model was you find out what you want to do, you go to a 4-year college and you get your degree, and then you do that job at an entry level and you stay there and move up until you retire, and that's life. And that didn't happen here in the States, for me and a lot of other folks. And so it was more about, you had this less of a career path and more of a body of work, like an artist might or a musician might. You have these different things that you've done that you somehow have to pull together into some type of story to tell about yourself. How do you practically, how do you create for example, a strong resume when you were a barista and worked at a nonprofit and mowed lawns? Like what do you pull from all of that to kind of say, this is what you're really about, and what career path should you be on? So upon some reflection, I realized I'd been telling stories and making art for families for a really long time. And I said, maybe I should be in the children's book market. It's the sort of stuff I like to do. I've been trying to pursue mainstream comic book art for a long time, but found it wasn't the tenor of story I wanted to tell. And I worked in young men's fashion, and both of those industries had a certain bravado to them that just wasn't my cup of tea. So children's books. And I had just gotten through a period of time of reading books to my kids who were just kind of growing out. So I was very influenced by it. So I took a turn and kind of said, this is what I'm going to try to pursue, and started down that road. And, you know, some hard work later and some blessing and serendipity, and I managed to break in and have a few books out now. So
Okay,
yeah.
but you're skipping the serendipity here.
Ah,
So there's
I did. Yeah.
tens of thousands of people who want to be artists of children's books, and you are one of the few, and I might even say one of the very few. You're being published by Penguin and other top publishers in the world. Um, so give us a break, Mike. What happened? Where was the break?
Well, if I so we've talked before. So what I often say about this sort of particular this process in trying to break into this industry is it's a lot like falling in love and meeting that special someone. It's like there are certainly things you can do, probably more things you shouldn't do. It's probably more the case. You know, and ultimately everyone's going to have a slightly different tale to tell about it. And a lot of it is just magic. That said, I did want to turn my attention really quickly to being able to speak back to those who are trying to do this with some insight that I think you have when you're just newly having broken through. The first part that was serendipitous was I met an agent through a friend, and that was probably one of my first contacts. And she is my agent now. And she was someone who was just because of her personality was interested in, you know, was nice. She's interested in helping people answer questions, da da da. And so probably what I would say matters most is just building relationships. At her recommendation, from the moment I met her, which, you know, I thought was going to be my big break, I went to this dinner with my portfolio, and I thought I'm going to come home tonight.
When you met her, it was because your friend wanted to introduce you.
Yes.
To this agent.
Yes.
Okay, and you came with a portfolio.
I came with a portfolio. I almost didn't share it. You know, it's just there's you know, it's like the night. It's a party. Like, you don't want to be like, you know, and I showed it to her, and she thought the work was good, and that I should come back. I should reach back out to her in a year after working hard and just focusing on Kidlit, because my portfolio was a little bit all over the place. It was a last minute thing. I had just thrown it together. That's when the real work began. I just, you know, I think that sprinting in this sort of situation is it just doesn't happen. You have to take your time.
You needed a few books to illustrate.
Yeah, I needed about a year's worth of time of really focusing on what art is out there in this industry and finding my place in it. And, you know, of course, now I look back at that work and go, oh God, like, why did I ever show this? But, you know, I improved greatly in taking this sort of like long route. So then I reached back out and got my marching orders just as sort of a mentor. Join SCBWI, a conference or an event, get a critique from a.
So for people who think that anybody can write a children's book, well, anybody can write a children's book, but not everybody can write a splendid children's book. And what I learned 5 years ago from this STBWI meeting is that there is a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to share the recipe?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's, uh, to some degree, I think that changes as tastes change. But I do think that the it's a hard question. I don't like to
No, but Mike, I'm going to make it easy for you. You already started.
yeah.
You join the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. You go to meetings, which are now online,
Mm-hmm.
and you take what courses? You find teachers.
Yeah, sure.
You
Yeah.
read books. You,
Yeah. I
you,
think
you find a critique group.
great. Yeah, I think that where I'm hesitant is I don't want to value a creative person's work uh, based on like some artistic merit or like what makes a good picture book. I don't like to talk in those terms. I try to focus more on if you want to be traditionally published, there are ways to do that. There's things that can help you and there's things that will work against you. How many words your book has in it, how much you know about the way they're put together, how many pages they are, how spreads work. Some folks that I might mentor or teach, they don't want to put their work inside that box. They want to have a longer story. They want to push some theme, something that matters to them. Great. Like I can't put a value on that. It just might not be published in this form that I know a little bit more about. So
No, but from the get go,
yeah,
when you met the agent, this was your dream to be
yeah,
published by a traditional
sure,
publishing house.
hmm sure, yeah. And so I basically did everything she said. I didn't jump quickly to the asking her to represent me. The funny thing is, a friend of mine who was single at the time was exploring the world of like online dating, meeting people and all this stuff, and would lament about do I call this person back? Do I call that person back? And during this whole process, I had sympathy for him. I said, it's the same thing. I'm happily married. I have 2 kids. I never thought I'd have to deal with this level of relational stress ever again in my life. Of do I call her back? What does this word mean? What does she mean by I like your work? Does that mean she likes my work, or does that mean she likes my work? Yeah, it's very stressful. So, I think what helped a few things. I mean, I had experience professionally already as an illustrator. I had worked in a lot of industries. I had gotten used to working for clients um, and not being too precious about feedback, criticism, critique. Taking those things to heart and adjusting. Um, so I think that I already had a certain level of craft that was like like visible, like it was apparent. I just didn't know a lot about the industry.
And then you called her, you emailed her. What did you do?
When I finally like sought representation. Oh well, so okay, so the yeah, so she said when I was ready to seek representation to make sure that I gave her an opportunity to consider that as well, which felt like a win in and of itself. Um,
Absolutely.
the funny part about the story was I didn't know the agency at the time that she worked for, she was an agent at a different agency, had a policy on their website for submissions. And I wasn't, and it said, if you're going to submit to us, do it through this general email. And I thought, but I have this agent's email, personal email. I don't know what the protocol is. And just was weighing, anyone who's tried to like query or like respond, like, you weigh these things, you're just like, oh my God. And I said, let me just do it by the book. I'll assume, that, let me just do it the right way. So I submitted it via the website. And mind you, this would have been like right before the like New Year's and Christmas and the holidays, Hanukkah and all that. And it was sort of the last day I could do it before folks were starting to take off of work, and I got cold feet and I kind of moped around, and my wife knew that I was going to do it. She said, why aren't you said you're going to reach out to her. And I was, oh, I don't want to. And she got really mad at me, in as loving a way possible. And was like, you said you're going to do this. And I did. I said, fine, I'll do it. But it was fear, and so I sent the email out and got a response back right away from that same email. And it was Lori, my agent, saying, why did you send it to this email? I almost missed it.
What are you thinking?
I just sent it, I only got it because like I was heading out the door and I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. Like this stuff usually, this is where everything goes. You should have just emailed me. So that she saw it. And, she took the holiday break to think about things, and we talked right after that. And even the conversation, it was like we talked on the phone, and it still was like I didn't know until the end of the conversation that she was offering me representation. So it was, we had to make sure we knew each other and all these kind of things.
So Mike, how does it work? At the beginning, you illustrated before you did Marigold, right?
No, actually, the interesting thing about that, no.
So well, let's say one second. So I'm going to ask my question anyway.
Sure.
So let's say an artist gets representation, but usually it's not for a book that he or she has written. It's for the artwork. So then, like you're in play for illustrating manuscripts that you don't know, or have I got it wrong?
Well, it might be different. I don't know. It depends on where your audience is. So I don't know if there's some differences in the way agents work. There's sort of two categories that I know of are art representatives, art reps, and literary agents. So a lot of times you can get an art rep that may also rep you in the world of kidlit. A literary agent will represent you as an illustrator and an author in the world of kidlit.
Lori took you on as an author-illustrator.
Yes.
So
specifically, that was her. She was interested in those clients.
So were you pitching Marigold?
No. So actually, our strategy was to get me out there as an illustrator first. I went to a New York conference. The first thing I did after we were working together, and I was working on a portfolio. She critiqued my portfolio, make these changes. One of the things that was necessary was to have a couple of character sketches and studies in there, and one of them was Marigold. Okay. And about a month after that, and it was like, oh, that's a cool, cute character. You should do something with that. So about a month after that, I went to another SCBWI conference, a weekend conference for author illustrators, to get book dummies critiqued. And you could get a book dummy critiqued, and you could, or a portfolio if you didn't have a book dummy. I didn't have a book dummy, and so I submitted my portfolio in advance for the critique, and then I'm kind of apt to this sort of thing. As the day was drawing closer, I was like, this is about book dummies. I really should have something. I started to worry, was I not representing myself well? So I said, and I had been working on this Marigold idea leading up to that, but it wasn't at all finished. And so I said, maybe I should just put together what I have. Fortunately, I drove up with a friend, and she did most of the driving. It was about a 2-hour drive from where we are in New Jersey. And I was editing and stapling together the dummy in the truck. And we stopped at a Staples on the way up to make copies of it. And, long story short, I was getting the portfolio review, and the art director said, it's really a shame that you didn't bring a dummy. I said, well, actually, I have one. I just didn't have it ready in time.
Is this true?
It's very true. It's
So Mike, this is the story.
Yeah.
This is the story behind the story.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I'm.
Yeah, but the moral. What is the moral of this story?
I think that it's stuff that's been said before.
No, but it hasn't. The moral of the story is find somebody else to drive the car.
That's true.
and stop at a Staples.
Yeah. Well, I think that you have to. If I really reflect, I think that you have to be willing to take it slow and be somewhat humble about where you actually are, and trust that there are those in this industry that know what they're doing, and that aren't out to get you, and to not be too cynical about the steps you need to take, and be willing to change, and be willing to grow, and be patient. Mm-hmm. But that has to be balanced with a certain appetite that, I could have just gone to that conference and said, I have what I have.
But I'm being facetious. You went the extra mile. That's the point.
Of course, right.
You sat in the truck and you drew, and then you stapled and you put it together, just in case somebody might ask you.
But it is a just in case. So
you were there.
True.
You had the umbrella.
Yes.
So yes. You showed them the dummy, and what happened?
So as she's looking at it, the funny thing was, in hindsight, I think, we're sitting there side by side. We're in a room full of other critiques going on, and I'm sitting there, looking as she's looking at the dummy, and she's laughing at the page turns, and all of my emphasis is focused on the dummy, but occasionally I had to look up and spy her face. I probably looked really crazy, but I thought she was smiling. Then the stress level was increased, because she said she wanted to take it to her publisher. Well, at first she said, could I hang on to this overnight? And this was a Saturday to Sunday conference. Could I hang on to this and think about it some more? I said, sure, that's cool. And what's funny is what I had learned in my learning was, don't just give your books away. Don't give people peeks at your book, at your projects. You watermark everything, and all these kinds of things. And I'm thinking, oh man, I just totally messed up. And yeah, so then the next day she said that she wanted to take it to her publisher. She thought it would be something they would do, and that they would most likely publish it. And of course I was on cloud nine. I called my agent. She said, let's slow down, take a break. She hadn't even seen it yet, because I just took it on a whim to the conference. So I said, I took this dummy. I don't know, they liked it. And then she did a great job of, you know, navigating the rocky waters of their interest and getting it to actually be a deal. Yeah, so
And and so the recipe led to Marigold Bakes a Cake.
yes, yep,
Uh,
absolutely.
and the first of a trilogy. There's going to be more.
Two, there's two. It was a
When there's two, there's three. You know.
maybe it was a 2-book deal with a 3rd book option. So there are 2 Marigold books out now, and I got the 3rd book option approved, but it is a completely different story. So we'll see.
So let's do some advertising. So Marigold Bakes a Cake is the first one.
Yes.
Second one.
Second is Marigold Finds the Magic Words.
Okay, and Marigold is quite a character.
Yes.
Patterned after somebody.
Cobbled together of myself, my wife, and our cat, probably.
It's a cat with an attitude, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
A little bit of OCD.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yes. So yeah, Marigold, I mean, I think one of the first lines in the book sums it up as Marigold likes everything just so. He is very particular. Cats are interesting. I mean, a lot of dogs, cats, and any animal that you would find companionship in and have the opportunity to be around long enough, you see these weird personality traits. And I just love that sort of stuff. In particular with cats, it's that they can be so seemingly nonplussed and in control and unaffected, and then completely lose their minds. And it just, and each cat's a little different as to what does that, and so Marigold is in some ways a celebration of that, being able to live a very meticulous, clean life until whatever it is that sets him off.
Until birds happen.
Until birds are his thing, because they represent, chaos, feathers and loud noises and twitchy movements, and he doesn't.
And losing control.
Exactly. He doesn't like any of that. So
I want to ask you a couple of things now.
Sure.
About education.
Yes.
Your children are homeschooled.
Yes, sir.
And you and your wife spend an enormous amount of time educating them.
Mostly my wife. But yeah.
You teach art.
I do.
To homeschool the schools.
Yes, to a cooperative of homeschoolers.
I think that nobody goes into homeschooling unless they have really good reasons, because it's such an investment of time and effort.
Sure.
So what's the reason behind this? Is it because something you or your wife suffered as school kids in public schools?
That's a good question. I think it's probably, like most things, a sort of stacking of several factors. I would say that the main reason is that the mentors that I mentioned at the nonprofit art center homeschooled their kids. And so in my early 20s, I got to see their 2 sons grow up and be around the life that we were in together. And so I kind of, my wife and I, she also worked at the nonprofit, that's where we met. we saw that day to day. And that was probably like our first exposure to anything like that. I would say, for my part, um, once we were at an age where we had our own kids when they were born, I was sort of able to see enough of my career that I could reflect on it a little bit, which at that point I was doing what I loved. I was making art, but there wasn't a lot of success involved. And I thought a little more, should I say, a little less getting lost in the shuffle early on might have been to my advantage in that situation. For a lot of reasons, I didn't have a ton of folks who were there to say, this is what you're interested in, here's where you should go with that. Now, I was also I wasn't the best student. I wasn't some say this may never have changed, but I wasn't the most organized of people. And
That's why you have Marigold.
exactly. So I don't know that, like, I don't regret anything about where my path went, but at the very least probably could have done with a little more intentional thinking at that stage in my life. And I don't think it's the kind of thing you can necessarily expect from a high schooler or younger themselves. So that, I would say, combined with, once we saw our kids and our daughter, once she got to be around the age of like 3, 4, 5, thinking, well, we're not ready for her to leave yet, not ready to give up that time together, so it just never was something we thought not to do at that point. It just became so, just.
And now you guys are miles ahead of the game, because everybody in America is worried about something that you've already mastered.
I would say you never really master it, but it was funny when everything, changed, how suddenly, I work from home most of the time. Our kids are home most of the time. So everything that was like being written about how to adjust was like, well,
you're already there.
Welcome to our world.
The other funny thing is that I'm tempted to call you Mike Malbrough. Because you're like a
Malbrough.
you're like a brother to me. Look at us,
It's true.
All I have to do is grow a little bit of a beard, and
I think you could do a better job. This is all I got.
And we've never met. We were Zooming and Skyping before everybody else.
That's right. That's true. That's true. I would take that moniker happily.
Yeah. So I guess what really intrigues me about you is that you are really one of the nicest people I've ever met. Kind, generous, non-judgmental. Maybe the opposite of Marigold in that respect.
Maybe so.
Marigold is some kind of alter ego, perhaps. Anyway, is this something that's in the industry? Because there are very nice people in children's literature. Is this the way you were brought up? Is this the way you are? There's so many people in the world who are mean and crafty and devious. And, you've been my tutor for over a year and a half, perhaps. And I had to pay you more money than you asked for.
Don't say that too loud, man.
Where does this kindness come from? Why are you such a nice, exemplary human being?
Wow. Well, you flatter me. I I don't know. I think that I guess um, I chalk it up to. I mean, where do you want to go with the nature nurture thing? But I think that uh, we sort of we mature into adulthood with certain radars, certain things that we like emanate or are willing to perceive or are good at, and for me, it's empathy. Like I just, perhaps even to a fault, I I am aware of my shortcomings and know how uh, you know I'm not interested in uh, judging others because like um, I can easily uh, narrate you know where someone else might be coming from. I guess that's the best way to put it. So um, I don't um, so I by nature I just sort of back away from too much of conflict or fighting for what I might perceive as mine or whatever. So yeah, it's hard to say. It doesn't always suit me well, but it's who I am. And
Mike, look, I think it suited you splendidly. I just say that, beyond the truck and the staples and the happenstance, what happened in your career happens maybe to one in 100,000 people, maybe one in a million. And it's not just about the luck and the timing and, making the right phone call and sending the right email. It's like having the right stuff.
well, I appreciate it, and I don't, and that actually makes me more I'm appreciative. So in being appreciative, I try not to hold on too tight because I think you know uh
No,
yeah,
I think that, like, if you were my kid, I would say, Mike, just, never change. Always be whoever you are now, and certainly, this success has not gone to your head. Um, we have time for just a couple of tips to
sure,
aspiring writers, illustrators.
sure. um I think that um the number one thing that I say, and I don't know, this is based on my experience personally and just witnessing other folks navigate this particular industry, is that, you know, again, to use the dating metaphor, there's nothing better than face to face. There's nothing better than it. It's all relationship building in the end and developing trust. And if you keep that as your um, in terms of breaking in, if you could keep that as your focus, and kind of view that as like ripples of a pond, this, you want to build sound relationships, that's what's going to carry you over the edge. If you have good work, um, and you have built sound relationships, I think that you'll succeed in time. Um, so any effort that you put out in terms of trying to break in, uh, and you're trying to stack up, you're trying to weigh things. Should I do this or should I do that? Well, what's most likely to lead to genuine relationships? Um, that should be what breaks the tie in those situations. Do I have a chance to do this thing online or have a chance to meet in person? Difficult as that may be for now, this, we'll get out of this. So, or, do I have a chance uh, talk on Zoom as opposed to email with someone. Always take the more personal, relationship building, curating, goodwill approach. Number one.
Okay.
Yeah, be easy to work with. And, you know, read the information that's out there about what to do and what not to do, because they're best practices for a reason. And I think that everyone that I've met in this industry has been great, supportive, personable. And so it really matters to set any sort of cynicism or combativeness to the side. Is just not going to get you far. Oh, and philosophically speaking, very important. You'll appreciate this one, Mel, because of your background. When you're doing your work, that's when you need to be an artist. When you're sharing your work and you're going to a conference or you're collaborating or you're getting a critique, that's when you need to be a scientist. That's when you need to take off the artist hat and put on the hat that says, I have a hypothesis that what I'm producing is good. And me getting this critique or showing this to this agent or setting it out on a submission is I'm testing that hypothesis. I might be wrong. That's the whole reason I'm putting it out there. Is if I'm wrong, I want to know why. And if you're able to like do whatever you have to do, yoga, pray, meditate, go for a walk, whatever it takes to get from those two modes of thinking, do it. And then once you've gotten it back and you've digested it, then you turn back into the artist. So yeah, those are all important, I would say.
Okay. This has been splendid. You're publishing next year another book, but I'm not sure you're allowed to talk about it.
It is called Love Is Here. It is published by Philomel, the same publisher that did the two Marigold books. The date's not quite set. It should be later 2021, so I'm expecting about a year from now or maybe a little bit past that. And it's a book about a little girl who loses her kite in a storm, but the kite is sort of a metaphor for love and the interconnectedness between us and the world and one another.
I'm loving it. And we also have a secret project that we're not going to talk about today.
We do.
Mike, okay, so now I'm going to ask you to put on your musical hat.
Oh dear.
No, you don't have to play. I know you play guitar though. How are you with the Beatles?
I'm familiar. I don't know if I get put on the spot how familiar I'll be.
No, but I mean, you like the Beatles.
Sure, yeah.
So what's your favorite Beatles song?
Paperback Writer, I would say.
Okay, and if you'd like to hum a few bars.
Oh gosh, I'm not going to remember the words.
I'll help you, dear sir or madam. Would you read my book?
Yeah.
Hey, you want me to sing it, right? Come on. Dear sir or madam, would you read my book? It took me years to write, and so I'll take
I can't remember the words. And I want to be a paperback writer.
Paperback writer.
If my kids were around, we'd be having a blast. Yeah, that's a good one. But I don't know the words too well. But the reason why it sticks out to me is the introduction, the music, the guitar and the drums, their relationship.
I thought that you had fallen in love with the content. Paperback writer. Won't you take a look? It took me years to write.
It's true.
Based on the story of a cat named Marigold.
I don't think that.
Who wants to bake a cake, but the birds get in the way.
That'd be hard. It'd be hard to fit all those words in.
Yeah, and I'm not going to write that song for you. So it's been awesome as always to see you. I cannot believe that we've never actually touched each other, hugged each other, shook hands. We were supposed to meet in April,
Yes.
and this virus interfered. So until the next time we talk, I'm sending you a big virtual hug from the Holy Land to New Jersey,
And in return, too.
and keep. I can't. Did you put that picture there for me, or is it actually sitting there?
It actually is. That's where it's sitting. That's its spot right now.
It's a
Yep.
very nice. It's a very nice illustration from something, whatever
Oh,
it is.
thank you.
Mike, I love you, and keep doing your magic and sharing it with the world together. Oh, by the way, if there's writers or illustrators of children's material that want the most fantastic tutor, then I highly recommend Mike Malbrough. So, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mel.
And you've always got Mel.
Of course, I know this. Take care.
Take care, Mike. Thanks.